Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. Thanks for joining us. I'm Greg Nibbler. We live stream here every weekday, starting at 1 o'clock, going all the way until our 4 p.m. news. If there's breaking news that happens during this time, we'll have that for you. But we'll also be covering a number of other different topics throughout these next few hours. But right now, we're going to be talking about the hantavirus. I'm sure a lot of people out there are aware of the cruise ship with several passengers who were evacuated from that, allegedly with showing symptoms, anyway, at least, of hantavirus. And some of those have come back to North America. One allegedly going to Georgia. So we are joined right now by Shea Schrader from our sister station in Savannah, Georgia, to talk about this. And Shea, thank you very much for being here with us. I appreciate your time to talk about this. And, you know, to start off, I think for anybody who doesn't really know what's going on, I'm sure you all have been following it very closely over there. Could you bring everybody up to speed on just what's really transpired so far?
Yes, so there is a cruise ship that was out cruising. It's called the MV Hondius. And in April, a passenger on that ship got very, very ill. And they weren't exactly sure what disease this person had or how they may have contracted it. But that passenger ended up dying. His wife then got on a plane to go home. Flew through Johannesburg in South Africa, and she ended up passing away as well. Now, health officials know that they contracted the hantavirus, which is a virus with like a 40% mortality rate that is usually contracted from coming into close contact with rodent droppings, urine, those kinds of things. But this situation has become particularly concerning for health officials because usually the hantavirus, you can only get it from having that close contact with a rat or a mouse, rodents. It's really only an animal to person disease, except in the case of one strain known as the Andes strain, and that is the strain that has been contracted on this cruise ship. And now some other folks that have had close contact on that ship have been diagnosed with hantavirus as well.
And yeah, as you mentioned, that that particular strain with that close contact and having the rodents with that, for these ones that have been evacuated, because we've been following along with some of the reporting on this, but it does seem a little bit speculative as far as where all of these people are, the ones that were evacuated off. But one of them allegedly coming to Georgia. Is that what you've been seeing?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a sticky situation for health officials because this cruise was a very long cruise, and some people got off of it before scientists and health officials even realized that hantavirus was what they were dealing with. And so we know here in the state of Georgia, there are at least 2 people that were on that cruise who are now back in the United States, back in Georgia, and they're being monitored by the Georgia Department of Public Health for symptoms of hantavirus to make sure that they're not contagious. We have not received confirmation from the Department of Public Health where they live, but our investigates team was able to discern that at least one of those folks lives in Brunswick, Georgia, or at least somebody that was on that cruise. There are around 17 Americans that are still on the MV Hondius, and as of today, the CDC said that they were going to be meeting with those Americans when the ship docks in the Canary Islands, and they're going to transport them back here to the United States and then quarantine those folks in Nebraska. But as far as folks that have already gotten off the ship, they are all over the country, including 2 in our backyard at WTOC in Georgia.
And as far as we know, those 2 have not been quarantining, or there's not much information on that?
We don't have a lot of information about that. The Georgia Department of Public Health hasn't really been responsive to our requests. We first asked them whether they were monitoring anybody in the state for the hantavirus, and they sent us a statement saying, yes, they were monitoring 2 people. They were in good health, not showing symptoms. We asked them some follow-up questions, wanting to know where specifically they lived, as in the area that they lived in, what exactly it means that they're being monitored, what protocols they're following, whether they're being quarantined, or whether there was a public health risk. And the Department of Public Health has refused to answer any of those questions. So we don't know whether or not they have been quarantined or what kind of protocols that they're following. We do know that the 17 Americans that are getting off that ship here very shortly are going to be quarantined, but we don't have any answers as far as those folks that are already back here in Georgia.
Yeah, you're right. That's a lot of open-ended questions right there. And what does monitoring mean? That's certainly something I think a lot of people would like to know or understand about that. Well, yeah, thank you very much for keeping us up to date on this. I mean, is there anything else that you think is important for people to know just from what you've seen there and what you've been following along with?
I do think it's important to understand that the strain that we're talking about here is the one strain of hantavirus that can be transmitted human to human and not animal to human. But the World Health Organization held a press conference yesterday morning. They were very clear that they think that this situation is low risk when it comes to global public health. There was one person with the World Health Organization that said very explicitly, this is not like COVID-19. This is not a COVID-19 pandemic. I think they're really trying to quell those fears in folks because I think, around the world, people have a little bit of PTSD from the COVID-19 pandemic. But right now, the World Health Organization is saying this is very low risk. But of course, they're monitoring it to make sure it stays that way.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. The entire world probably has some PTSD from that, of just what we all went through there. So definitely interesting, though, to follow along with this and find out more as these passengers are taken off of there. There's 17 to Nebraska and whatever is going on with the other passengers that are here in the United States there in Georgia as well. So Shea, thank you very much, for asking those questions and following up on all that and sharing that information, because really important stuff to know, even if, they are saying maybe it's not something to completely worry about. There's still concern there, and definitely want to find out more. So Shea, thanks very much for joining us here on Fox 12 Now too. I really appreciate it, being over there in Georgia and being a part of this and being able to share that with us and our viewers.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And for everybody watching, we are live streaming here out of the newsroom. We do have a little bit more on this here, and